Here is an amazing issue. This is pretty much a perfect issue. Avengers 257. 257. I would encourage everyone possible, read this, but the single issue is unobtainable because it is the first appearance of Karen Gillan, so most of you are never going to be able to afford it. She is a minor part of the issue. The real focus is on, as the cover depicts, the Avengers fighting Terminal. Our story has taken us to the Savage Land. The Avengers are trailing a giant bad guy called Terminal, who destroyed a sea liner, and it has brought them to the Savage Land, where they meet ka-zar and his pet tiger. This is written by Roy Sternman, with art by Sal Buscema. That is John Buscema's brother, and that is definitely who it is. There is Hercules, man, chilling with a saber-toothed tiger. Can you feel the love tonight? I can now. So, our villain, Terminal, he was a pretty new character at the time. He was introduced a year earlier in Fantastic Four issue 269. And that issue is a really great build-up to him. That one is good. But then the second part of that story, it quickly resolves things while never paying off all the build-up to Terminal as this gigantic motherfucker. And for me, it is this story here where we cement Terminal as a truly magnificent bad guy. It's also, as I said in part 1 of this, it is the last story where Terminal is readable. We will come to that aspect in a few pages, but for now, Terminal has come to the Savage Land to devastate shit. And so here we have one of the Avengers scouting ahead. It is Shade, the Changing Man, on a team with Captain America, Wasps, Hercules Man, and Darth Knight. This is the character you can certainly point to as being the weak link. He's the one that, you didn't care about much. Roy Sternman, however, makes you care about him. Shade the Changing Man feels really equal to the rest of the team in this. He is written really well, he is utilised in good ways, and Roy Sternman makes a character like this feel worthwhile on the team. Here he confronts Terminal, but Shade the Changing Man is but a flea to Terminal. Before we get to Terminal's amazing feat in this issue, we cut away to our ongoing subplot in space with Captain Marbles, the real one, Monica Rambeau. And so here is the debut of Karen Gillan. This bad guy, much like Terminal actually, began as one of the greatest new bad guys of the 80s. and then was sharply dissipated with bad retcons that undermine all the good stuff they accomplished in their debuts or their first story arcs. This Karen Gillan stuff is the next main story on the series. After this issue, the rest of the Avengers gone off into space, and we have this really terrific intergalactic space war going on with Karen Gillan and the Skrulls and Kandor and Firestorm, and then Beyonder Man gets involved. Right now, though, I need to talk about Terminal and his wonderful act of genocide. In this story, Terminal utterly destroys the Savage Land. Independent of me personally hating the Savage Land, I think this is a remarkable way to straight away get Terminal across as a Galactus Man level threat. And that was the intention. Jason Byrne wanted him to be a Galactus Man type. And he didn't quite succeed at establishing that when he had Mr. Fantasticals defeat him with a magic science machine that buried him underground. But here we have him totally obliterate the Savage Land. He burns it down. Here is some birdmen burning alive. It's wonderful. And yes, I hate the Savage Land, but I am fine with it existing. I think most stories involving it are boring or by Christopher Clairvoyant, and so I think the use of it here is superb because it contributes to building up Terminal as this titanic threat. I mentioned Christopher Clairvoyant, so now it is the right time to talk about how this story was retconned and undone. At least I'll get to show the fight after I moan about this. Not long after this story came out, Christopher Clairvoyant, he got annoyed that someone had dared to alter, or in this case eliminate, the Savage Land, which he seemed to believe was his toy. So, with as little effort as required, he has the Savage Land restored. All life returns, flowers bloom, etc. That part is fine, I guess. It belittles what Terminal accomplished, but it is understandable when writers bring something back that they feel was hastily discarded. I think you can bring the Savage Land back after this. I think there would be an interesting story there even, rebuilding the Savage Land. But Christopher Clairvoyant just had someone wave their hands and everything was back as it was before, which is not a story. The more destructive thing, however, is Christopher Clairvoyant, and this part of the retcon I do not understand. It did not affect them bringing back the Savage Land at all. He has Terminal in his story, but then he reveals that it isn't actually Terminal, and it is one of his boring Savage Land menaces who was wearing Terminal's armour, which makes no sense as you will see in a few pages. But the real complete fuck to Terminal was at the end, Christopher Clairvoyant had a throwaway line of dialogue where he established that the Terminal in this story, was never Terminal. There is no reason to retcon this being Terminal. It doesn't affect what happened to the Savage Land. It doesn't affect Christopher Clairvoyant's stories. All it does is continue to take away from this fantastic issue and begin the cycle of never-ending retcons that make Terminal unreadable. So the Avengers, hopelessly underpowered. We get to see some great little bits like Darth Knight cutting Terminal's arm off with his sword, because his sword is magic and can cut through anything. And all this is going on while genocide is happening. And then a really big blizzard starts because Terminal's destruction of the Savage Land has fucked up the ecosystem. And we have this brilliant ending with Hercules man tearing up Terminal's armoured skin to reveal that he is just this fat little alien man in armour. I didn't entirely like this reveal because it is exactly what paved the way for the retcons. I liked it better that Terminal was a big alien rather than a little blob in a big suit of armour. But yeah, Hercules man, he destroys the armour here. That is how Terminal was defeated. But somehow, the armour is fine and appropriate for reuse after this. We have a dark ending where Hercules man leaves the decloaked Terminal to die in the freezing cold. I was a bit uneasy about this when I reread it. I didn't like the idea of the Avengers leaving Terminal to die. But then I quickly realised that this was Hercules man's decision. The other Avengers are not aware that Hercules man is just leaving Terminal to die in the cold as punishment for what he did to the Savage Land. The Avengers just think Terminal man is defeated, that he maybe died from Hercules man's attack. Excellent, excellent story though. It would be so much better if I didn't have to tell you about the retcons and how even after Christopher Clairvoyant, every subsequent Terminal story is trying its hardest to retcon, explain, or fix Terminal, and none of it works. Marvel had a truly imposing and impressive bad guy here, and I'm not sure how you could bring him back after Hercules man's defeat of him here. But Terminal is only ever terrible after this. Now, in a rare moment of explanation, I dubbed him Terminal, not just because it sounds like Terminus, but because this character was Terminal. He was introduced, he had some promise, he was great here, and then he was trashed and totally worthless by his appearance after this. He was a terminal prospect. He didn't have long to live. He was incurable. He was a terminal character. This is a perfect issue, though. It is perfect. I'd be a div to not give it a 7 thumbs up.